Dunkin' is putting a whole new spin on pumpkin at Dunkin' with our new Pumpkin Cream Cold Brew. Smooth, bold cold brew topped with velvety pumpkin cream cold foam made with cinnamon and nutmeg spices. And there's more pumpkin for you to love, like the delicious fall classic, our Pumpkin Spice Signature Latte. Rich espresso topped with whipped cream, caramel drizzle, and cinnamon sugar. That's how we pumpkin at Dunkin'. Sip into the fall season with the $3 medium Pumpkin Cream Cold Brew or Pumpkin Spice Signature Latte. America runs on Dunkin'. Participation may vary. Limited time offer. Exclusions apply. Valid on Pumpkin Spice Signature Latte only and all cold foam cold brew.
Introducing Peacock, the new free streaming service from NBC Universal. It's hit movies, current shows, live sports, trending bits, and timeless hits. And that's why you can't not watch. Peacock. Watch for free. Upgrade for more. Stream now at peacocktv.com. Law & Order SVU streaming now.
Welcome, everybody, to the Ever-Evolving Truth. My name is Jeff. I am here with Abby Sterner, Greg Sterner, and Amanda Wagenseller. We're shuffling the lineup a little bit here today. If you guys haven't been paying attention to the weather, we got trounced, not as bad as Louisiana, of course, but we got trounced here on the East Coast by Hurricane Ida. Lots of rain, lots of flooding, tornadoes. I know we were going to start off with the Texas abortion ban here, but how about quickly mentioning climate change? Like, we're arguing about all this garbage out there, right? And the world is literally on fire. I was watching the news yesterday, and there was a point where there was literally 3 catastrophic tornadoes on the ground in and around Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. When have you ever seen that before? It's happening right now in front of us. Everything that goofy old Al Gore said 20 years ago is happening right now. It's happening.
Definitely some bad weather. I don't know how close we can make the connection to Al Gore yet, Jeff. I'd have to look at the data on the severity of this one versus the others. I think Al might have been a little bit excitable with some of the doomsday picture he had, but certainly he deserves major credit for bringing that topic to the mainstream and making it something that people have been talking about ever since in a big way. So he deserves credit for that.
He's been right on. If anything, his prediction was not soon enough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, it's not the day after tomorrow or anything, but
not yet.
We're definitely seeing weather patterns become more extreme. So I don't know how people are just turning a blind eye to it, but the evidence would suggest that there's some reality.
It wasn't just
choice, right?
Well, yeah. It could be God or some fucked up demon up there, because it was raining cats, dogs, and I think maybe even emus, ostriches, all sorts of fucked up shit coming out of the skies. It was a scary scene out there. And in all seriousness, some people's properties were majorly damaged by that. So our well wishes go out to them, because it's going to be a long climb back for a lot of them, sadly.
Yeah. Well, and you look too at what's happening in California and just the Pacific Northwest in general. Like, fire used to be a season there, right? And it used to be natural. It's a natural rebirth of the forest out there. Now it's literally happening all year long. Like, the smoke from the California fires are affecting our breathable air here on the East Coast. Like, that never happened when we were growing up. This is a serious thing, but for another day, we have some big news to talk about here. First being the Texas abortion law that was just passed. Let's preface this before we get into it, because I think we all kind of share similar views on this. But it is passed. It has not been challenged yet in the federal, the state courts and the federal courts. So there's still that process that needs to kind of pan out. Maybe it doesn't hold up, but my inclination is to say that this is going to be upheld, especially in the highest of the state courts of Texas. And when it eventually gets to the Supreme Court, chances are it's going to be held up there. This is what they've been fighting for the past, 40 years, it seems like. So the Texas abortion ban, just a couple highlights here. First of all, this is when you hear the term heartbeat law, this is essentially banning any sort of abortion if there's a fetal heartbeat detected, which is usually around 6 weeks, which most women don't even know that they're pregnant at 6 weeks. And there is no exception for any sort of rape or incest. And the other part of this bill that I find, and I can't even say interesting because it's just so disgusting, is that it allows, correct me if I'm wrong here. From the way I understand it, a heartbeat law has already been passed. This law is on top of that, saying that you as a citizen have the right to sue somebody who you assume or think had an abortion.
Or assisted in any way.
Or assisted, or if someone drove that person to the Planned Parenthood, or the doctor that performed it. If it was 6 weeks in one day, or a day after they discovered a heartbeat. This is fucking insanity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah. What else is it? You were telling people, hey, you know what? Leah's not with us today, but Leah's been very open talking about her abortion. I could go and be like, you know what? Mama needs a new couch. So guess what? Right. We're going to go report her. Think about the people that are only going to do it for monetary gain. They don't give a fuck about lives. They don't care if there's a baby born or not. It's a way to make money.
Yeah,
I don't get. Go ahead.
I was just going to say you're incentivizing people to follow around and harass women who are in their most vulnerable state, seeking out an abortion. That's not a decision anyone makes lightly. And you're incentivizing people to go around, follow them, spy on them, harass them, and report them, which is the same kind of behavior I was railing against last week with the that school policy about turning teachers in for using the wrong pronouns. I don't like this culture of.
But is it more of a turning in, Abby, in this case, than like suing someone for money? Because I don't know how I, unrelated to the situation, could sue someone for monetary damages of any kind. This is more like a turning in situation. Is that right? In Texas? Because I'm confused.
You can bring a civil suit. This law empowers individuals to enforce an abortion ban. How would that work in practice? ? Anyone who successfully sues an abortion provider under this law could be awarded at least $10,000. That means if Wags decided to have an abortion and it was against the abortion law in Texas, I as a citizen, and I don't even have to know Wags or live near her or even know of her, I can say, you know what, I think that woman had an abortion, and I can present my case in court, and if I can prove that she did, and it was against the abortion law that exists in Texas, which is 6 weeks or a heartbeat, and I can be awarded $10,000.
See, when I was reading it, I assumed it meant, like, let's say me and Abby live in Texas. Abby decides to have an abortion. I'm the father of the would-be baby, or I'm related. I'm like the mother of the father or whatever. I'm somehow directly affected by the act. Then I could sue and get damages from that. The idea of just some random person being able to sue another random person and getting paid for it, it makes no fucking sense, first of all. But aside from that nonsense, I think the bigger question for me, which I don't have to get into quite yet, the bigger question for me is what exactly is happening here? Because for me, it comes down to one of two things. But if you guys want to talk about it a little bit more before I get there, that's fine.
Yeah, I just want to add to, from what I've read, I haven't been able to get a clear picture. So if one of you know the answer to that, great. Someone else that's listening knows. When you were trying to prove that I had an abortion, what happens? Do I need to go and get a medical examination to show that I've had an abortion? So I no longer, potentially, if I truly did go through with an abortion, I no longer am carrying anything within my womb. But now you are coming onto my body. My body is now evidence in court for, Joe down the street because he's pissed off at me because I wouldn't go out with him in 8th grade. You know what I mean? So like now I'm being subjected to an invasive medical procedure. And let's just say like I was raped, or I had this pregnancy with someone who was very aggressive, or it was a really bad relationship, or a fucking one night stand. And I already feel awful about that, but now you're going to go inside of my vagina and examine to see if you can find anything.
See, I would doubt that an accusation from another citizen could necessitate a physical examination of the person being accused, because you could accuse anyone.
Texas.
But, and again, this is scary shit, so I don't know how far they'll try to take it. But I would just say, I think when it comes to, if I sue Amanda and say, hey, she got this abortion and I can prove it, I would imagine the way I'm proving it is through some kind of records that were kept by the clinic that performed the procedure, or some kind of proof outside of saying, hey, by the way, I think this person had a baby, so go reach up in their vagina and find out what's going on. I don't think you can do that.
Well, and through the process, exactly, through the process of trying to prove whether an abortion happened, where are we crossing over into HIPAA rights violations?
Exactly. They don't exist.
That's what I was going to ask. Is it now like off the table because a crime was committed and now you don't have HIPAA rights? Like, I don't understand how this works exactly and how it's legal.
Well, let's just point out the obvious here and the truth. This law was drawn up by a bunch of fucking disgusting Republicans. They don't have a plan for this. This is literally just to appease their religious fucking bigot base, and it works. This is what gets people to keep on voting for them, right? This is, you guys have seen, I think some of you have seen The Newsroom with Jeff Daniels.
Yes.
It's a brilliant show, and they basically write the show around real news events that have happened. So anyway, they have Jeff Daniels has this line where he calls the Tea Party the American Taliban, right? And he gets a bunch of shit for it. Boy, was he right. Now, it's not the Tea Party. The Tea Party looks like a bunch of progressive, crying babies compared to Trump's Republican Party, which is what we're dealing with here in Texas. They are the American Taliban. I'm saying it. I'm sticking by it. It's fucking ridiculous. There was a meme that came out of women hanging off a plane, the wheels of the plane, which we just saw in Afghanistan, saying, last flight out of Texas. They aren't wrong. This is just step one. This is disgusting. There's not a single Republican elected official that has spoken out against this, the disgusting part of the disgusting facts of this bill. And to me, that's telling. Every single Republican in this country needs to go. They're awful. All of them.
Well, and can we just talk about, too, everyone likes to frame this as a pro-life movement. It's not pro-life. It's anti-woman. So, like, I personally have some moral problems with abortion, but they're personal. I'm pro-choice. I don't judge anyone for making what choice is right for them. But because I have moral problems with abortion, I would love to see the rate drop off. But that means like comprehensive sex education. It means having contraceptives available. It means making adoption accessible and not having these tens of thousands of dollars in fees to adopt a kid. There are so many things that need to be done to actually be pro-life, and the only thing that is being legislated is access to abortions. How is that pro-life?
It's not.
It's not. And just to go back on what Abby said about having access to sex education and contraceptives, the big idea is that places like Planned Parenthood will go away. Planned Parenthood does more than just abortions. It is a lifeline for a lot of women, including myself when I was in my early 20s, for contraceptive. I didn't have insurance. I couldn't afford to go see a doctor, but I wanted to make sure that I didn't have an unwanted pregnancy. So I used Planned Parenthood to get my birth control because it was accessible to me and to women like me who didn't have a lot of money. So now you want to take away this. What do you think is going to happen?
They don't care. They don't care. They care about the unborn fetus because this is the right's version of virtue signaling. They're not really making anything better for anyone. Really, they're making things worse for a lot of people, especially low-income people. Because let's face it, most people who end up getting abortions, it's not just because, oh, I had a wild night and I was unsafe and, oh, I can always just get an abortion. It's
no big deal.
Like stuff happens and there are people who cannot take care of a child and you're going to force them to have a kid and either they're going to be stuck in poverty for their entire lives or the kid's going to go into the system and statistically probably not have a very good chance at a good life.
Someone brought up a great point that this bill does not hold men accountable at all. Like, why are they not being sued along with them? You know, why, you know, if men, quote unquote, get a say or an opinion on this, why are they not, you know, liable to these civil suits?
Well, I suppose the men who participated in administering the abortion would be, but I hear what you're saying, like the partner involved in the baby.
Yes.
But to respond to Jeff, I don't think you're totally wrong with that American Taliban shit, because I think what a lot of the people in Texas would like to see happen is that they would like to see the Christian view of how people should live be the overarching morality of the country, and they're trying to gain power for that religious cause and that religious influence specifically. They're trying to gain power on that end to make sure that people live a certain type of moral life, and that is very much like the caliphates that happen on the Islam side. And forcing people under it is the scary part. Now, to speak to what Abby had said about to speak to what Abby had said about the this is anti-woman, I think in a lot of ways it is, but it's like anti-woman's choice to live the way that she wants to live. As far as the very specific point about Abby saying that you had moral issues with abortion, as I do, but that you were still pro-choice, like it was a personal reason for you, you're still pro everybody else's choice. I'm going to slightly disagree with that, only to say that while I'm pro-woman's choice to live the way she wants to live, and I am pro-abortion up to a certain point, and by the way, what they're pushing for or what they're passing through now is 1/3 of what I suggested as the reasonable point at 18 weeks. They're going for 6. But my point is, pro-choice completely I also don't agree with, because what you're saying then is that it is another person's choice to execute a valuable life at any point they want, and I still couldn't go along with that part of it, because I do think there's a moral question before that 18-week mark.
I didn't say pro-choice with like no reservations in there, you know?
Okay.
I'm talking about also, as the law is now federally.
You use the word, and I know what you were saying, Greg, but I just want to clarify here, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm going to speak for you here for a second. You said I'm pro-abortion to a certain point. Let's just be clear here. There's not a single person on this planet that is pro-abortion. That is not the end game, the end product that anybody wishes for when they get pregnant by accident or on purpose. It's just not. And I can't tell you how many people that I've talked to out there that share similar views to Abby, who are pro-choice but would never choose to have an abortion for themselves. Are you telling me that those people are baby killers too? You fucking assholes. Like, the fact of the matter is, people aren't rushing to get abortions. They're doing it because they feel they're in a desperate position that they don't have another choice. And that is facilitated by our ridiculous healthcare system that is outdated, draconian, and does not, that is not about making us healthy. It's about keeping us sick, and it's about our financial system that is designed that if you're poor, you're staying poor, right? That's why people get abortions. There's not a single person I've ever met in my entire life that says, man, I'm so disappointed that I never got the chance to have an abortion. What was I thinking? You know what I mean?
No, my statement definitely was supposed to be pro-choice up to that line that I find acceptable. I have a question.
But I think it's important. I think it's important to talk about because literally people on the other side think that because I am pro-choice, I am pro-abortion and I want people to have abortions galore. That's not the fucking case. It's just I know that the people that I side with have actually taken steps to reduce abortions. If you look at the numbers, they have gone down significantly every year since Planned Parenthood got funding from the federal government to do things like cancer screenings and well checks for women and their babies, right? Abortion is a very small percentage of what they do, and it's just like a last resort after the education that they do. It has, exhausted every other possibility.
If you
we used to in the 80s, we used to have 1.5 million abortions a year. Now we're down to like 700,000. It's been cut in half through education and medical care access.
If you give women all of the care and education and resources that they would need leading up to a pregnancy, the abortion rate would drop off. It's never going to completely go away because things still happen. There's still rapes, there's still incest, there's still broken condoms, like things happen. But like the more you know, the better you can protect yourself. And that's what I'm an advocate for, because I don't like abortion. I do think it's barbaric. I do think there's a moral issue there. And again, I'm going to say no judgment to anyone who's had one. But that's why I'm in favor of like comprehensive sex education and like arming people with knowledge and resources, because I am actually against abortion and I would love to see those numbers go way, way down. But this is not the way. This is just going to cause more problems.
No.
Taking the option away and forcing people to be parents that don't want to be parents is not the way to do it.
Yeah.
And let's just, before we move on to anything, because I know Greg really wants to say something. There are not drive-through abortions. Like, you can't just show up and be like, you know what? I'm just going to pop in here, pay $20 and I'll be on my way. No, there's a lot more that goes into it. And I think a large majority of people think I can just walk into a clinic, this slut that got herself pregnant is just going to get an abortion and leave in the same day. Mm-hmm. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Well, and how many, so we're talking about the actual process of going in to get an abortion. Think about the woman prior to making that step and how much she has to sit there and work through what she wants to do. I just feel like these laws are so insensitive to like the real life struggles of everyday American women. Like you don't understand what they're going through. And I find this kind of legislation to be just the epitome of like callous.
Yeah, and let's also be clear: the people of Texas do not, by an overwhelming majority, want this legislation. Texas is, for all intents and purposes, a purple state. This is one of the most heavily gerrymandered states in the union, and whether you vote, Democrat or not, there is no chance that your progressive candidate can get elected based on their election rules and the way the districts are drawn up. So it's controlled by these ultra-conservative nut jobs that can get elected because no one holds them accountable because you can't vote them out. But the not the overwhelming, but it's essentially a slight edge in Texas where people generally agree with progressive policies. They want health care. They view it as a right for every American. They want minimum wage increase, and they want the choice, the freedom to choose, right? Those three things, whether they're religious conservative or conservative socially or fiscally, quote unquote, as you hear, those three issues, Texas polls year after year for decades in favor of progressives. So why is it that the Republicans control this state? Because they fucking lie, cheat, and steal. They don't care what the people want. They just care what they want. And they just want to stay in power. That's it.
Yeah.
I feel bad for the people in Texas. I do. I feel bad for like half of them. The other half deserve what they're getting because they fucking voted for it.
But like, why do human rights and healthcare have to be political?
It
shouldn't be political. It shouldn't matter which party you side with.
But I do have the answer. I do have the answer for you, Wags. The reason healthcare and human rights are political is because corporations are running the government, and corporations are all about profit. They have made the most basic of human needs a for-profit enterprise, because then they are guaranteed a never-ending game. That's why. And I know you know that. It's just like to say it out loud sometimes. It's like, no, that's the obvious reason is the reason.
Yeah.
That's
think about insurance companies when it comes to health insurance. Talk about the most pointless thing in the entire world. Why are we paying health insurance to a company that's going to try to deny us health coverage when we need it? Instead of taking that monthly payment and giving it directly to a hospital, and it sits in an account and waits for us to get sick, right? Mm-hmm. Like, isn't that a better system? Like, again, maybe oversimplified, but isn't that a better system than handing it to an insurance company that makes billions? Combined, the biggest health insurance companies make trillions of dollars off of the poorest people in the world, and then deny them the treatment that they're paying for. Mm-hmm. Why? Why does anybody want this system?
It's fucked up. But Greg, I know one of the things you really wanted to talk about was where you're afraid this law is going to lead long term.
Yeah, so I would ask you guys to look in your crystal balls here and try to find out. So obviously our collective rage on this issue is more than justified. What these guys are pushing right now is so extreme. It's so crazy. Anything I've ever said about the radical left and all the names I've directed toward those extremists, these people pushing for this shit are just as bad. However, I want to know what you think the long game is, because I think that what's happening now is not going to become the law of the land, and I think it scared a lot of people that the Supreme Court looked the other way on it. So the big question is this: what are we actually seeing here? In my mind, after tossing it around in the old brain for a little while, here's what I came up with. I think it's one of two things. It is either a states' rights revolution that the Supreme Court is in favor of and not going to get in the way of. So on the most important issues, from abortion to healthcare to drugs to whatever, the laws of that state pretty much being determined by that state. Is this a states' rights revolution that the populist movement that got certain of those justices in the formation they're in the Supreme Court, has that bled into the culture, for lack of a better word, of those justices, and led them to not stand in the way of a states' rights revolution? Or that's the one possibility. The second possibility, which I think is more likely, is that they knew in order to get enough dust kicked up and in order to get enough of a storm brewing here, what they needed to do was push things that were so scary, that were so extreme, that the American people were going to demand that the Supreme Court speak on this. And then at that point, the end game would be have them bring up the federal law on this, bring it back up and examine it and determine, does it stand? Does it change? Does it get repealed and replaced? What happens to Roe v. Wade? Nothing good for pro-life people, I can tell you that much. But that's the question. Are they using this to push and demand Roe v. Wade to pop back in front of the Supreme Court so it can be voted on and changed and get more restrictive than it is now? That's what I tend to think, but I'm very interested to hear what you guys have to say about that.
Going to be both?
I think so.
That's what I think. Whatever the most evil thing they could possibly think of, if it includes both of those options, that's what they're doing. Let's keep it. These are the evilest of evil human beings that have cooking this plan up for. Again, this is systemic over decades. This is why they gerrymandered districts. This is why they made it so that they can't be voted out of power, so that they could stack the Supreme Court and they could overturn these types of policies and appeal to a religious base that's going to continue to vote them in no matter how evil they are. It's been the plan, and it's been working. And I've been screaming about it for, since I've been in my early 20s.
What about you, Wags?
Yeah, I think I'm more in favor. It's probably a combination of the both, but more so probably the second part of it. It's obviously a very calculated move.
That's what it feels like.
That it's not just, there's been things going on with pro-life, pro-choice, abortion, all these fetal heartbeats. This is not the first time that these conversations have come up. They haven't necessarily gone to this point, but if you do get people fired up enough, something could happen. And I think we're seeing it. We've been seeing it for the last 2 years of these little things just keep piling up that are driving people to extremes on both sides.
Abby?
I tend to lean towards that they're pushing these laws through because Texas is not the first state to do it, but I think this is probably the most extreme law that has been pushed through regarding abortion. And I think it's a calculated move to have it be challenged because they know it's going to be challenged, and push it up to the Supreme Court so that they can revisit Roe v. Wade. I think that's what they're doing. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot else to say on it. I think it's scary. I remember, Greg, you and I were talking a while ago when they were appointing all of these Supreme Court justices and the court kept leaning more and more and more conservative. And you had said months and months ago that you thought that this was coming. Yeah. And I didn't disagree. But I feel like I was hopefully, I was hoping that you were wrong about it.
Yeah.
And you were right. And I think it's just a matter of time before Roe v. Wade is in question.
Well, there's an ancient Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times. But I think a worse curse is what has befallen the America of 2021. May you live in scary times, because those are the times we're living in, folks. Real scary times.
Yes.
Yeah, and while all this is happening right in front of us, Democrats are arguing about little minute details about a voting rights bill that would protect your rights as a voter and prevent this gerrymandering, this cheating that goes on, closing poll places, requiring that would give us automatic mail-in voting and automatic voter registration. All these things that would encourage more people to vote, and we know that when the more people vote, the less conservative our representatives are, because generally, overwhelmingly across this country, even Republicans, when you present the question to them right, do you think that healthcare is a right? Do you think you deserve to have healthcare? The answers are like 70% yes. The Democrats are arguing about that the voting rights bill is too far reaching among themselves, right? So this is what they're arguing about while a woman's right to choose is being taken away. What's next? A woman's right to vote? You might laugh. That might sound like a crazy statement, but this was a crazy statement. If I would have said like 10 years ago, I predict one day that you'll be able to sue someone you don't know for having an abortion, you'd be like, Jeff, you're fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And they've already dismantled the Voting Rights Act through the Supreme Court before it was as conservative as it is now, right?
Has anyone seen anything on the news yet? Anybody? I haven't. About women or groups claiming they are going to immediately leave Texas over this?
There's been a lot of, from what I'm seeing, because I'm all over the social medias, there's a lot of talk of like, hey, if you want to come visit me in this state, which I kind of want to go back to when you said about it being a state decision. As soon as you said that, my first thought was, okay, so if Pennsylvania is going to be a pro-choice state and we're going to have all these laws, imagine all the people that might be moving. And then what are you going to have? Texas that's just going to be, anti-abortion, anti-women's rights. What the hell is that going to do to our fucking country? If we are literally going to be divided, living in a time where you live in these states if you think this, and you live in these states if you think that. My God, our fucking children.
Well, Amanda, you bring up a very frightening picture, and it leads me back to a discussion we had on one of my favorite episodes, the Fears episode, where we talked about, let's say we get civil war and the country's split right down the middle. Well, obviously, reality is not going to work out that nice for it to just split right down the middle, and the religious people over here and the dirty liberals that want Sodom and Gomorrah over here, right? Meaning the extreme views of both sides. But I think what you just described is how, if that happened, it would happen. You would start moving to friendlier places. You would start moving into zones or districts, to use some scary language, that coincided with the way that you thought the world should run, the country should run, and the way that you thought reality should be. And that's how, in a matter of, God knows, a matter of 1 to 5 years, who knows what the demographics of the country will look like and where the belief systems will be. It might be evenly distributed enough to have us right on the precipice, right on the eve of destruction, as the old 60s song would say, of that civil conflict that we all fear so much.
I tell you what, the answer is not to move out of Texas. The answer is for all of us to move to Texas and just outnumber these fucking turds and vote them out.
I thought you were going to say get abortions. I don't have a uterus anymore, so I couldn't do that. But hey. Well,
look, this is going to end up being, this is just the first step. They'll end up making this a felony so that you'll never be able to vote again. Like I said, this is, when I say eliminate women's right to vote, it's not going to be just right out and saying it's the same thing that they did with the war on drugs, right? If we make them felons, they won't be able to vote. Right. That's why it's systemically targeted towards black people so that they can't vote. Right. So now we're talking about hundreds of thousands of women because men can't get abortions. Right. So like the goal is that these 700,000 abortions that happen a year or more, because, there's going to be more if we close down the Planned Parenthoods and make, limit or eliminate period access to abortion. There's going to be more. 1 million women with felony records for just getting an abortion aren't going to be able to vote. Again, all designed to keep them in power because overwhelmingly women vote Democrat compared to Republican. Yeah. This is systemic. It's planned. It's been going on for decades, and their plan has worked. Our side has been arguing over petty bullshit the entire time. And what's even worse, let me just be fair here, just to appease Greg. I am just as pissed as Democrats over this, Democratic voters, because you people have stayed at home over these petty bullshit issues while we're deciding what we want to call each other. You said, well, that guy, he's insensitive, so I'm not going to go vote for him. Then the conservative prick who's absolutely crazy ends up winning, and now we have these laws in place. So thank you all for staying home. This is just as much on you as the crazy people.
I am suitably appeased, sir.
Can I make a plug real quick about this?
Yeah.
Amanda, you had said earlier that when you were younger and didn't have money that you would go to Planned Parenthood because that was the best and easiest way for you to access reproductive health care.
Yes.
I have insurance. I go to Planned Parenthood. I choose to go there because that is where I want my money to go, because I want to support a place that has the best interest of vulnerable, low-income, minority, inner-city communities. And if you feel the same way, I would urge you to do the same thing. I have had nothing but the most excellent care there, and I actually prefer going there to get my birth control than going to the gynecologist. So, if you money is what makes things happen. So if you're against this law and you are in favor of the good work that Planned Parenthood does, put your money where your mouth is.
Use them.
True that.
About 10% of their patients are men too. It's
yes.
not just women that go there. Men go there too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And they do cancer screenings and,
which you all should be getting anyway.
Yeah.
STD screenings. I mean, it's not like women are the only ones who can get an STD.
Well, look, if you guys fill up those waiting rooms enough and they have to spend all day administering your birth control, they won't have time to collect, harvest, and sell those baby parts anymore, and everything will be good.
That's true. You know what? Abby, next time you go, I'm going to go get some birth control as well.
Okay.
Save the baby parts.
One of the more ridiculous things that has ever been hypothesized or spread, by the way.
Yes,
I think that rumor started in Texas, didn't it?
Based on the current climate, I can't even laugh at that joke, Greg.
I think there was a growly-voiced man in Austin that might have propagated that story quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're also, the fetal cells and parts are also in the COVID vaccine, which in Texas there's not a mask mandate, so you don't have to wear a mask, but you can make a teenager that was raped not be allowed to have an abortion. That's
congratulations. Another one for the good guys, right, Wags?
Make it make sense.
talk about states' rights, that whole hypocrisy bullshit that they argue too. Like, you're not even letting your school boards decide what's best for their school district as far as mask goes. They're both Texas and Florida both signed legislation that said you cannot mandate a mask in schools, public places, restaurants. So fuck that states' rights bullshit. Like it's such bullshit because whatever happened to a private business being able to decide what's good for them? They decide who they're allowed to, who's allowed to patron them, right? No shirts, no shoes, no service. Nobody has a problem with that, but God forbid you put a piece of cloth on your face to protect the person next to you. Oh my God, my rights. Fuck you. So
well, Jeff, shit. You talked about all the petty
bullshit. My own country.
All the petty bullshit that people are arguing over. I think in our next article that Abby brought with us, we'll get to hear some of that petty nonsense. And I'm excited to bring things down a little bit from the truly terrifying on the news list today to something that is just
mildly enraging. It's
mildly enraging, but it's also a sign that something scary has already taken place. So I can't wait to get into that.
All right, so let's take a break, and we will come back right after this.
The Labor Day event's here at Gap Factory and GapFactory.com. Shop 40 to 70% off almost everything. Plus, tanks from $5, shorts from $10, and jeans from $20. Through September 7th at Gap Factory and GapFactory.com.
You might have noticed a change in your neighborhood lately. Yep, Sprint stores are now T-Mobile stores. Now that Sprint is T-Mobile, you get more coverage, value, and benefits than ever before. We've invested billions to bring our 5G from big cities to small towns across America. And great coverage is just the start. From high-speed mobile hotspot data to weekly deals and giveaways, our customers get tons of great benefits. Head to your new T-Mobile store to learn more.
Qualifying service and capable device required. Coverage not available in some areas. Some uses may require certain plan or features. See T-Mobile.com.
Switching to Geico is a good idea, especially when you consider everything.
First off, Geico makes it easy to switch. They have licensed agents available 24/7 online or over the phone.
But if it's so easy, you might start thinking everything is easy, even big wave surfing. And it's not. It's actually quite difficult.
Well, if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds on car insurance. And you could keep saving by bundling your motorcycle, boat, and RV, plus your home or renter's insurance.
But saving money might lead you to make some questionable purchases, like a 20-foot feather boa. And do you know how hard it is to clean a 20-foot feather boa?
Well, they do have an industry-leading mobile app you can use to pay your bill, file and manage a claim, or add a new driver.
But when life gets a little easier, it makes you too confident, and you start calling everyone Ace. And you're better than that.
Well, Geico has a 97% customer satisfaction rating and has been saving people money for 85 years. It's hard to beat that.
But you're right.
Switch to Geico. It's obviously a good idea.
Welcome back to the Ever-Evolving Truth. Thank you for sticking with us through our heated discussion on the latest ridiculous, disgusting abortion bill that was passed in the lovely state of Texas. We talk about abortion a lot on this show. And I think we're going to be talking about it a lot more. But until then, Abby has an interesting article for us that I think we'll all have some thoughts on here. Abby, do you want to tell us about what you found?
Sure. So I found an article on Huffington Post stating that Sarah Paulson, who I think people probably know her best from the American Horror Story series, but she starred in the creators of that show's new series, American Crime Story. She was in the one about O.J. Simpson, and now she's in a new one revolving around the Bill Clinton controversy with Monica Lewinsky, and she plays Linda Tripp, who was the whistleblower in that case. So the article is about her expressing regret over taking this role, because for her to portray this character, she had to put on 30 pounds. And then in addition to that, they gave her a little bit of padding under her costumes, maybe a little bit of prosthetic work, just, movie makeup to make her look heavier and look like the character she was playing. So there has been outrage. And when I say outrage, I don't mean widespread social outrage. I mean the same woke mob who looks for this bullshit to get upset about. But they're upset because Sarah Paulson took this role away from someone who, you know, is maybe an overweight actress, and the role should have been given to them. And I'm bringing this up because this is the article that I came across this week, but this is actually something that has been in the news a lot in recent months and years. And there's all kinds of examples. I remember there was an article with Julianne Moore saying she regretted taking the role in The Kids Are All Right, where she plays a lesbian, and she felt regret. Of course, after taking
Julianne Moore, right? Abby?
Is that what did I say something else?
I heard something else, but Julianne Moore. I just wanted to. I thought I heard Julia Roberts. Sorry.
Yeah, Julianne Moore. But after taking the role, doing it, and getting paid for it, she then expressed regret because that role allegedly should have gone to an actual lesbian. Jenny Slate.
But it doesn't. She didn't say anything like one that could actually act, though, right?
Well,
as long as it was a lesbian.
I think the assumption is that it should still be an actress, but it should be an actress who better fits the role. Back around the time when everything happened with the George Floyd murder and racial tensions were really high, there were a number of actors who came out, but specifically I remember Jenny Slate, who does the voice of a biracial character on Big Mouth. She came out and said, I'm not going to voice this character anymore because it should go to a person of color. And I'm just like, I don't know, Jeff, I definitely want your opinion on this since you're in the film industry. I'm sure you do. My understanding is that actors as a profession are basically blank canvases, and they transform themselves into the character that they are hired to portray. And we have seen throughout the years, people completely transform themselves. Like I think about Christian Bale playing Dick Cheney, right?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, if you didn't know that was Christian Bale, you would not it was mind blowing to see the transformation there. So the thing that I get so enraged about is the double standard. So like Leah's not here tonight, unfortunately, because her power is still out. But she had brought up that there was a fictional biography on BBC where the actress Jodie Turner-Smith, who's a Black woman, was cast to play Anne Boleyn. Okay, obviously Anne Boleyn was white. The entire cast of Bridgerton was mixed race. I don't know if you guys saw that show or not, but it's a Regency era period piece, a la Pride and Prejudice, that had all mixed race cast. And Amanda, you had brought up that Elliot Page, who has transitioned to male, is going to reprise her role in the Umbrella Academy where she's playing a female character. So I would just like some consistency. Like, it's fiction. Like, can't you suspend disbelief? Does it have to be like a completely accurate representation of the actor playing the character? Like, I don't have a problem with any representation. Like, I thought Bridgerton was great. I don't have a problem with a Black actress playing Anne Boleyn. It's creative. I'm entertained. Like, I don't care. I don't need everything to be completely accurate in something that is fiction. And the example that I think enrages me the most is Lin-Manuel Miranda, who was praised for Hamilton, where he took the story of the Founding Fathers and told it through an entirely mixed race cast, Black and brown people telling the story of our Founding Fathers. And it was like this great message of like, even though we weren't there in this capacity when it happened, it's our story too. And then fast forward a couple years and he makes In the Heights about Washington Heights. And now he's coming out and prostrating himself for this woke mob that's now after him because he didn't cast quite the right minority demographic for that specific area. There weren't enough dark-skinned Latinx people in the movie. And it's like...
Well, he's clearly a racist.
Well, that's my point. It's like, it's entertainment. It's fiction. Why are we getting outraged about this. It's like, I just find it to be ridiculous. But have at it. What does everyone else think about this?
Before we go, so Missy, the character on Big Mouth, there's nothing stereotypical, even though she's biracial. There's nothing stereotypically black. There's nothing stereotypically white about her, right?
Yeah.
So she's just like a normal, could be anybody character that Jenny Slate happens to voice, but she is drawn as a biracial character. Now, I could see, like, when Hank Azaria, I think, decided to stop playing Apu on The Simpsons, I kind of get that one a little bit more because Apu was a stereotype, and there could be Indian people who were offended by that, felt like The Simpsons had been making fun of them for 20 years with this character. When Hank Azaria finally said, you know what, I didn't think about it that way before, but I kind of do think about it that way now, so I'm going to decide to stop playing the character. I don't have a problem with that. The reason I have a problem with all these people that you've been talking about is that I've said this before on past episodes, but when you have a popularity-based economy, which is what Hollywood is, it's popularity, money, power, right? And celebrity, but that's kind of the same thing as popularity. So if you are in a popularity-based economy, you are at the whims and the urges of the masses. So if the woke mob becomes, and has become, by the way, a big enough portion of the masses, and they start exerting pressure on these people that do not want their dream lives taken away, they do not want their fame and fortune and money and all the fawning they get from people, they don't want any of that taken away. So that's why the woke mob, and more specifically, the mindsets that are driving the agenda behind the woke mob, that's why they've got these people dancing to their string. I remember Stephen King when he was, I think he was an Academy member that got voted on certain categories for the Oscars, right? Writing categories for the Oscars. And he came out and said a very reasonable thing, which was, to me, race doesn't enter into this question. It's about the merit of whoever the contenders are for the award, and that's how I make my decision. And Stephen King got roasted by the woke mob. He got roasted by the trendy liberal Nazi crowd. And what happened was he came out, and instead of saying, hey, fuck off, I just said something totally reasonable, and if we're going to give awards for performance, why the hell is it anything but merit-based? Instead of that, Stephen King, who I greatly admire, but I didn't admire him in this case, came out, tail tucked between his legs, and said, sorry, I goofed. And he apologized like they were right. And that really, really bothered me. But yeah, I think that's what it comes down to, is that when I say that the extreme left has gotten a foothold in Canada with their legislation on C-16, and they've gotten a foothold in Hollywood, this is it happening. What you're seeing is it happening. They wouldn't dance to this tune like this if they weren't afraid of it. The studios wouldn't kowtow to it and issue their statements and punish people in these weird ways if they weren't scared of it and going along with it. And as soon as you take over Hollywood, I'm not saying they've done that, but as soon as you would take over Hollywood, imagine the influence you have in this country to get shit done. That's scary.
So I have a lot of thoughts on this. I could probably talk by myself, just to myself, for an entire show about this, because it's such a complicated issue. So first of all, there is a history in show business of slighting people that would be qualified to play a role and using a white actor or a man instead. Like, go all the way back to Shakespeare. Those plays, they used to use prepubescent boys to play the female characters instead of just females, right? Mm-hmm. Because women were second-class citizens. There was a long time in Hollywood where blackface came from, or started to come from. In Hollywood, for certain movies, they would just pick a white guy and paint their face black, and it would be an awful representation of a black guy. But that's what they did for so long. And then, but I like fast forward a long time, we've come a long way. And like him or hate him. I just
want to say real quick, those are worthy of criticism.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh yeah, I think
and even there's things you can criticize recently that have followed those old trends and old ways of doing things, and they should be criticized. They should be pointed out and criticized. But if you fast forward, we've made a lot of progress. And love him or hate him, Bill Maher, says a lot of things that I agree with and a lot of things I disagree with. But one of the things that I do agree with him when he says, he's like, look, there's obviously still racism. There's still bigotry. There's all these things out there in America, but don't lose sight of how far we've actually come.
Yes.
Right. In spite of that, we still need to fight for everybody to be equal, but don't lose sight of how far we come. So now, like where we're at, there's many black filmmakers out there that are making movies with majority black casts, you know, and that's great. And as a lover of movies, I would choose to watch those movies just as much as the ones from white filmmakers, because here's the bottom line. When it comes to a creative person, I don't think there's any sort of lack of empathy overall in the creative community for minorities and women, and especially when it comes to the job front. It's just as creative people, especially like writers and filmmakers, you write what you know. I can't write a story about what it's like to grow up in the South Side of Chicago because I was never fucking there, right? Like it would be awkward and it would be a terrible movie. I'm going to write movies about what I know, which tend to include the majority of the people in my life are white. It's just what I know. It has nothing to do with being racist or anything like that. But as far as the casting issue, like this is just, it's gone beyond ridiculous. Because are you telling me that if they do a story, if they do a movie about Chris Farley's life, I'm more qualified than a professional actor because I'm a fat piece of shit? Like, are you kidding me? Like, it's absolutely absurd. And for these actors and actresses to bend the knee to this, well, because we're talking to a couple people here, like their voices are amplified on social media, but I want to be clear here. I don't believe it's a lot of people, and I believe that those actors and actresses, some of whom I didn't even know their names, I'm certainly not going to stop watching their shit because some group on Twitter pointed out that, you know what, maybe a fat person should have played this role of a fat person instead of a skinny person who put on weight. Like, are you fucking kidding me? This is a merit-based industry. You're either right for the character or not. You can either portray the character or you can't. You're either willing to put on the weight or the fat suit or you're not, right? Like, that's what it comes down to. And if you're not as good of an actor, and the part playing is a lesbian, you're a lesbian, but you're not that great of an actor, and there's someone that can play that part better, I'm sorry, but I'd rather see the person that's not a lesbian that can play the part better, because like Abby said, I'm going to the movies to suspend disbelief and be entertained and get and be brought into the story. And you know, there's certain actors and actresses out there that have the capability to do that, and they should play the part if they are the best fit for it.
And remember, just because it's a fat character, like remember, Jared Leto has gone up and down crazy. He's probably fucked his body way up forever. Like, who knows what kind of shape he's in.
Look at Matthew McConaughey.
Well, right. They've all done that crazy method acting. But when Jared Leto gained whatever it was, 60 pounds to play Mark David Chapman, the killer of John Lennon in Chapter 27, okay, Jared Leto was the right guy to play that part because Jared Leto had the ability to connect with the emotional point inside of himself to express Mark David Chapman properly on screen. If a person has the ability, like this woman, was it Paulson?
Sarah Paulson.
Okay, who got criticized for wearing the prosthetics and the fat suit. If Sarah Paulson had the emotional intelligence to connect with the key emotional points of that character she was playing, then she was the best fit for it, whether she had the same body mass index as Linda Tripp did.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Well, and let's be honest here too. The film industry is a capitalistic industry. They are going to book people for these roles who are going to bring audiences in. Like, that's just the reality of things. So
that's why Ridley Scott got in all kinds of trouble when he made that movie about the Egyptian Empire, and he got criticized for casting a white guy, and he said, "Look, if I cast Muhammad such and such, you think I'm going to draw the money I need?" And he ate a ton of shit for that because it was a pretty insensitive way to say it, but like he was right. There is a commercial element that you just mentioned, Abby, that has to be considered when you're. I mean, films aren't allowed to lose money.
Most people don't understand how a film even gets made. Like it's actually quite simple, right? Well, you could have the best script in the entire world. It could be the greatest story, universally regarded as the best written script ever to grace anybody's desk, and it won't even get read by a studio. Now, if you go there and be like, I have a great script, and oh, by the way, Tom Hanks is attached to it, they're going to read it, and they're going to make it. Right?
Absolutely.
And they're going to worry about whether that character was black or white. They're not going to care who Tom Hanks is playing. They just care that Tom Hanks said yes. That's it.
Yeah.
Right? You know, that's the level, the depth in Hollywood. right? There is no level. There is no onion to peel back. That's it, right? And but here's the real problem is that these actors and actresses and entertainers and comedians and stand-up comedians have to stop amplifying these voices. Stop apologizing.
Yes.
There's nothing to be sorry for. Like I brought this up on the show before where there's a movie called Tropic Thunder. It was average at best, right?
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr.'s character, the character he played was a white guy who got hired in the fake film within the film to play a black guy. And the idea was that it's a ridiculous premise. Mm-hmm. That's the joke. And people that nobody gave him shit when it happened, but like just recently, like a year ago, they all exploded on Twitter and said, Robert Downey Jr. wears blackface. No, he didn't. He was hired. His character was a white guy who got hired to play a black guy in the movie within the movie. That's not the same as getting hired. He wasn't hired to play Michael Jackson. He wasn't hired to play LeBron James, right? Like, that's like, there's a definite line. Like, if you're hiring Steve Carell to play LeBron James in the new Space Jam, okay, we got some questions, right? Hey, Mr. Carell, why are you taking that role? Mm-hmm. That's not what's happening.
If you can't understand the satire there, that's a you problem. Absolutely. That's not a society problem. That's a you problem. Lighten
you
the
don't
fuck
have a sense
up
of humor.
and learn how to laugh.
And
right.
don't forget,
and that was the funniest part of the movie.
It was.
Don't forget the hypocrisy involved, because the reason Robert Downey Jr. hasn't eaten more shit for it than he already has, which he hasn't eaten much, but the reason they didn't try to run him out of town on a rail was because Robert Downey Jr. was too much of a box office bomb. Well, in a good way, he was a box office big ticket horse, right? That drew all kinds of money, and they were never going to cancel.
He never apologized.
Well, and he shouldn't have apologized. What you said was right.
That's the key here. Don't apologize. Don't feed into it.
If somebody is popular enough and still makes enough money, Hollywood is not going to sacrifice them and drop them on the fire of this, of this raging mob that wants a sacrifice. They're not going to sacrifice Robert Downey Jr., but they're happily allowing these people, as you said, Jeff, it was an effective way to say, allowing these people to just bend the knee and prostrate themselves.
Mel Gibson said some terrible anti-Semite shit, right? And never even really apologized for it, and he's still making movies. Like America forgives.
And he should be.
If you really are offended that much by what Mel Gibson said, then don't go see his movies. If they don't draw money, he'll go away because he's not, like you said, he's not making the studio's money. Like you have the power to protest with your wallet, and you're free to do so. But to try and this just ties into the cancel culture thing, to try and get all these people to apologize for shit that they say, especially comedians in a joking manner, not for it. I don't care how stereotypical it is. I think stereotypes are funny. Now, granted, I'm coming from a white privileged life, so when people make fun of how lame white people are and that they can't fucking dance, I think it's hilarious. Right. So I can't speak to being black or Indian, but I don't even agree with the whole Apu thing. Like, okay, maybe he's like, okay, I'm tired of the character. The stereotypes has been done a million times. But the fucking Indian stereotypes were funny on The Simpsons. They were over exaggerated, and there was nothing inherently evil or cruel about it.
And it was funny.
It's just it was funny, and if I'm go ahead, try to get me to apologize for saying it's funny. It's not going to fucking happen ever. I don't care if I never get past this level. I don't care if I'm the biggest star in the world. You're never going to get me to apologize for laughing at a joke.
But who are they apologizing to? Like Bridget Jones' Diary. Like, are you apologizing to me as a woman who's overweight because you played a woman who's overweight compared to someone like myself? Well, yeah, I've got the roles, but I don't have the talent. Like,
and were you offended? Were you
offended? I'm not.
I'm not either.
Fucking awesome. If you can gain that weight and then lose that weight, go for it. If you're playing a lesbian, you're welcome. You got to have a good time. Like, why are we making everything so much more? And like, it's who's getting on Will Smith when he played Muhammad Ali? Like, he had to buff up, slim down, like he had to do things.
It's
he was the best.
But here's the
Wayans brothers when they played white chicks.
Here's the thing. When you look at the double standard, the only people who are getting called out are these like oppressors. Are you white? Are you straight? Are you thin? Are you wealthy? Like, these are the things that we're focusing on. These are the people that can't have the roles that should go to the oppressed. And I'm using these terms because this is the filter through which these people are looking at things. Because it's not a problem when the Wayans brothers play white chicks, but it's a huge fucking problem if somebody does blackface. Now, I have a problem with blackface, and I don't think that people should do it, but it's just be fucking consistent. And so this is the bigger point that I want to make about this whole thing, because as annoying as I found this article, it's not so much because of the celebrity bullshit, because it is bullshit. As a liberal, like, I really do care about the ways in which minority communities in this country are disproportionately oppressed, for lack of a better word. Like, I just want to read a couple statistics for you guys, and they're probably ones that you've heard before. Black women are 4 times more likely to die in childbirth. The average life expectancy for a Black person as compared to a white person is 4 years shorter. The net worth of an average Black family is 10 times less than that of an average white family. 10 times. That's like insane. 89% of white Americans graduate from high school versus only 79% of Black Americans. And as of 2019, only 29% of the Black population in this country held a bachelor's degree versus 45% of the white population. And that's for people in the age bracket of 25 to 29. So like recent college graduates. So this is
any of those people give a shit that Robert Downey Jr. played a white guy who played a Black guy?
Thank you, Jeff. That is 100% my point. So this is why I get so angry. I am a liberal, and these are the issues that I care about. These are the issues I want to talk about. This bullshit going on with these Twitter trolls who are part of this like far left woke mob calling out Hollywood. What are you doing? At best, maybe you got one Black actress a role in Hollywood. Maybe you got one lesbian actress a role in Hollywood. It's not doing any good. And in reality, I mean, I think it's actually causing harm because it's so divisive. It gets people worked up. And
you're putting a target on people. Like,
yes,
you're Black, you should have this role. You're skinny, you should have it. You deserve it.
It's divisive. It's saying you're the enemy. You're oppressing these communities over here. Whereas, like, what I want is for everyone to come together and talk about the real issues and like, what the fuck can we do to actually make things better for everyone? And, you know, I think back to, Jeff, you had brought up something that Jordan had said about the government providing affordable housing for inner city communities so that they could establish some kind of generational wealth. And like, that's something I actually want to talk about. Jordan, if you're listening, I want to talk about this. But like, these are the issues that we should be talking about, where it's like, it actually could affect some change for somebody. And I think as liberals,
I think that was actually my idea that stemmed from a conversation I was having with Jordan. But I could be wrong.
I'll try to take the credit, Jordan, if you're listening. Don't take any of that damn credit that
Jordan,
belongs
if you
to
are
Jeff.
listening and I'm wrong, please at me.
Well, regardless, anyone who wants to talk about it, let's talk about it. But I think, you know, we're all a bunch of liberals here to some degree or another. And I think it's our responsibility to call out this kind of bullshit because it's a distraction and it gets nothing done. And I think we need to push talking about like the real issues.
Well, this is what I was talking about. Like, this is what we're bickering about as progressives while Texas bans abortion.
Yeah, they're actually getting shit done.
They're getting shit done. We're
shit.
arguing about it. We're getting an actress or an actor a role that they probably didn't deserve. Good job, guys. Congratulations. Give yourselves a round of applause. This is a bunch of fucking privileged white people who are angry. Like, I bring up the mayor or the governor of Virginia again. I did last week. They find out that he did blackface like in the 70s. Okay, boo-hoo. Right? And everybody's like, resign. And then the Black community was like, well, hold on a second. Like, this guy's helped us out a huge amount. Like, we don't want him to go anywhere. We don't give a shit that he did something wrong. Like, he apologized for it. What else can you do as a human being, other than apologize for something like that? But again, I want to point out that I do not think that this is a large group of people. I mean, large when you think of numbers, when you think of how many people live in America, this is not a large group. This is a group that has an incredible amount of amplification on social media, and they get their numbers behind them and they all go after one person at one time. This is something that they got good at doing. And this is also not a reason to vote Republican, because those people on that side are crazier and way worse. This part of the party, this part of the Progressive Party does not control entire states. They do not control our votes. They do not control our politicians. They are yelling at Hollywood. They're yelling into a void. They're a pain in the ass. We all hate them, but they're a small.
So would you not agree that they've gotten a foothold, though, Jeff? Would you not at least say they've gotten a foothold in Canada and Hollywood?
Well, so
a little bit in Hollywood. I mean, Canada's just more progressive than us anyway,
Here's the thing, though. Jeff, I think you're 100% right. This is nowhere near the majority of the liberal wing of the country.
No, it's not.
But the problem is they are loud, they are obnoxious, and they are angry. And because they cause this bickering and divisiveness, they are the ones being covered by the media. And the media does have power. And that is a huge problem, too. So the media is giving them power, and they are basically telling the country that, like, this is what the left is.
Yeah, well, we don't have a far enough reach. I agree with you, Abby. We don't have a far enough reach to tell people, fucking ignore it. We have the power. Ignore it, and they'll go away like petulant toddlers because they just want attention. They just want people to hear their cause. Ignore it because it's a stupid fucking cause.
Well, let me just say this. I agree with the majority of everything that just was said. I will say this, though. I do think you got to watch it because, in my opinion now, they've gotten a strong foothold in Hollywood, and they've gotten an even stronger foothold that they're affecting the laws in Canada. The first step is the biggest one to take. Once you've taken that one, every subsequent step becomes easier and easier because you've already gotten a foot in there, right? So the other thing is I think people need a lesson in public shunning, because we think it's a matter now, especially, opinionated young people who aren't thinking maybe on every level about this, think it's just as simple as snap your fingers, cancel the guy, go away. You said something on the ban list. What they don't understand, and we're going to get into this in when we go over my article, if in order to effectively publicly shun a person, that means you can't just hate listen or hate watch them. And keep clicking on the shit that involves them because it's train wreck entertainment, or you want to feel angry in that moment. You're going to look at their shit because every click and every endorsement of their popularity is going to keep them where they are. So if you really are interested in getting rid of somebody, as Jeff stated, ignore them, which means don't look over here, don't click over here, ignore them as though they're not there. That's how you properly shun someone. And if a big enough group does it, believe me, they're going to go away, because that means they will draw no ratings, no money, no attention, no fame, and therefore what good are they going to be to whatever platform they're on?
Well, and here's another point that I feel like needs to be made too. Don't confuse yourself into believing that just because the agendas that are being pushed, maybe you agree with them, like you're in favor of trans rights, you're in favor of gay marriage, you're in favor of uplifting Black communities. There's a way to do it that's the right way, and these like bullying tactics, these divisive tactics, even if it's on your side and it's an agenda that you support, the way in which they're going about it is really scary. And I would go back to the cult episode that you guys did on Jim Jones and Jonestown. He was the biggest advocate for socialism and uplifting the oppressed. That's how he got his following, by saying, the Black people in his community, you guys are being left behind. Come with me. I'm going to take care of you. We're going to make sure everyone's taken care of. And on the surface, that sounds great, but look how that ended. So just because it's something somebody agrees with doesn't mean that it's a good thing.
Damn right.
You got to be careful.
let's take a quick break and we will come back and finish up the show.
You might have noticed a change in your neighborhood lately. Yep, Sprint stores are now T-Mobile stores. Now that Sprint is T-Mobile, you get more coverage, value, and benefits than ever before. We've invested billions to bring our 5G from big cities to small towns across America. And great coverage is just the start. From high-speed mobile hotspot data to weekly deals and giveaways, our customers get tons of great benefits. Head to your new T-Mobile store to learn more.
Qualifying service and capable device required. Coverage not available in some areas. Some uses may require certain plan or features. See T-Mobile.com.
You might have noticed a change in your neighborhood lately. Yep, Sprint stores are now T-Mobile stores. Now that Sprint is T-Mobile, you get more coverage, value, and benefits than ever before. We've invested billions to bring our 5G from big cities to small towns across America. And great coverage is just the start. From high-speed mobile hotspot data to weekly deals and giveaways, our customers get tons of great benefits. Head to your new T-Mobile store to learn more.
Qualifying service and capable device required. Coverage not available in some areas. Some uses may require certain plan or features. See T-Mobile.com.
With Sun-Maid, whole fruits natural sweetness opens a world of imaginative snacks. Take a sweet or sour adventure with fruity raisin snacks. Chill on creamy, delicious yogurt-covered raisins. And for ultimate yumminess, try s'mores granola bites. Because with Sun-Maid snacks, goodness really is delicious. Get a taste at sunmaid.com/imagine that.
Welcome back to the Ever-Evolving Truth. We are here with our final segment, and we are lucky enough to be joined by Courtney, who was able to hop in here after work. Welcome,
hello,
Courtney.
hello.
Glad you could make it. We've gotten hit by a lot of weather, and I moved, and so there was a lot going on, which really messed up our schedule. So it's been tough to get everybody together on the days that our normal record day is Wednesday, so we're here on the Thursday now. So it's tough to get everybody to change their schedules here. So we appreciate everybody being adaptable. We have a couple more articles to go over here. Greg, why don't you start us off with what you have?
Well, first of all, Jeff, I want to say welcome back to Pennsylvania. We've missed you.
Yes.
Thanks for coming back.
Well, and just so everybody knows, I did not leave school. I'm just finishing out my degree online here at home.
All right. Well, Whitehorse is stronger for your local presence. Here's what I wanted to bring up today. And I'll just start by saying this, because this is the point that I really want to get to here. Think about those people right now that are fighting in the streets for the rights of transgender people, black people, minorities, gay people, women. Name your oppressed group. And they've got a lot of people convinced. Well, a lot of people are out there marching because that's what's in their heart. They believe in these things, and that's why they're marching to it. Nothing wrong with them. The people that are driving the agenda, though, the agenda that says, look, this stuff is so bad, this oppression of these people is so bad, and the treatment of them is so bad, we need to start regulating what you can say about them so we can make sure that none of this mistreatment happens. Essentially what that is, and the controls on your speech and thought that the extreme left wants. Okay? The reason why you need to think about this is because they have made a decision to say this is the morality that everybody needs to follow. All right, you cannot say these words, you cannot oppress these people, et cetera, et cetera. Essentially what they're doing is they are building a morality model, a paradigm of morality, and they are saying you will follow the program. And if they got power, they would have everybody following that program. That's how these people think. Now, the reason that a lot of people on the left are not scared of this at the moment is because they're like, well, look, it wouldn't be a worse world if you could never say the N-word again. It wouldn't be a worse world if women weren't oppressed. It wouldn't be a worse world if you just respected a transgender person and called them what they asked to be called. All good points. It wouldn't be a worse world if that stuff wasn't there. But it would be a worse world if the morality of living like that and not doing those things was forced upon you. So think about that for all those people out there who identify with communism, who identify with socialism, who identify with equality for all. Remember, someone always has to enforce the equality, and that's how you get totalitarian regimes that control everything. All right? So think about all those thoughts as I lead into this article about communist China banning effeminate men from TV. Okay, so I'm going to breeze through this real quick, just so you know what's going on. China's government banned effeminate men on TV and told broadcasters Thursday to promote, this is from NPR.org, by the way, to promote a revolutionary culture, broadening a campaign to tighten control over business and society and enforce official morality. Official morality. President Xi Jinping has called for a national rejuvenation with tighter Communist Party controls of business, education, culture, and religion. Companies and the public are now increasing pressure to align with its vision for a more powerful China and healthier society. The party has reduced children's access to online games and is trying to discourage what it sees as an unhealthy attention to celebrities. Broadcasters must resolutely put an end to sissy men and other abnormal aesthetics, the TV regulator said, using an insulting slang term for effeminate men, Nyang Pao, or literally girly guns. How do you like that? That reflects official...
Are they describing my muscles?
I think so. That reflects official concern that Chinese pop stars, influenced by the sleek, girlish look of some South Korean and Japanese singers and actors, are failing to encourage China's young men to be masculine enough. Broadcasters should avoid promoting vulgar internet celebrities and admiration of wealth and celebrity, the regulator said. Instead, programs should vigorously promote excellent Chinese traditional culture, revolutionary culture, and advanced socialist culture. Xi's government also is tightening control over Chinese internet industries. It has launched anti-monopoly, data security, and other enforcement actions at companies including games and social media providers. Okay, we can skip that part. All right, so broadcasters should avoid performers who violate public order or have lost morality. Programs about the children of celebrities also are banned. On Saturday, microblog platform Weibo Corp suspended thousands of accounts for fan clubs and entertainment news, and a popular actress, Zhao Wei, has disappeared from streaming platforms without explanation. Her name has been removed from credits of movies and TV programs. She's been disappeared, it sounds like. Thursday's order told broadcasters to limit pay for performers and to avoid contract terms that might help them evade taxes. Another actress, Zhang Shuang, was fined 299 million yuan, 46 million, that's the equivalent of, last week on tax evasion charges in a warning to celebrities to be positive role models. Okay, so this is the kind of stuff that starts happening in a government that is has organized a morality for the entire country to follow. And if you leave the actions of the extreme left as it is now in the States, operating as they are and what they're pushing for, if you let their agenda to its natural end, this is what you get. I'd like your thoughts.
See, I got to disagree that we're
How
seeing...
could you possibly disagree with that?
And we're seeing that end game take place in a state like Texas, and it's the extreme right, which is the party in power.
That's all happening, Jeff. That doesn't change this. That doesn't change this, though.
But
just
because
that's happening.
Singling out the extreme left, which does not have a state.
Because somebody on the show has to, because you single out the extreme right.
But it's not true. They're not doing anything like what you're saying. But there is a party, a main party that is doing those things, and it's the Republican Party in Texas.
But Jeff,
that's all I'm saying.
They're
I don't
doing
agree
these things
with what's happening in China, but it's not the extreme left.
The extreme left in this country,
though, about what they're saying, but they hold no power compared to the extreme right, which is actually banning women's rights and forcing morality on people.
The current visible power in the country, you're right, is way more to the right now. That is true. I won't fight you on that. But to say that the extreme left does not want to control your thought and the speech and the natural extent to that agenda would be what you're getting in China right now, you can't argue
that they're not
You said nothing that I said that they're doing is happening.
Because they can't. They don't hold any power. They're just loudmouth assholes is what they are. That's
all
they are at this point.
Keep watching
they are controlling the media. Look at what the media is putting out. We just talked about it with where they're, accusing actresses and actors of taking roles that they have no business taking. The fact that the media is, I know, but the fact that the media is covering it, the media has a huge amount of power in the country. So while I agree with you that the right at the moment is more dangerous because they have legislative power, that doesn't mean that there's nothing to be scared about on the far left.
And again, I didn't say that there's nothing to be scared about. I'm just saying they don't hold any power. Joe Scarborough from Morning Joe on MSNBC is not some crazy left-wing person who's promoting this. They cover it because it's news and people watch it. And the reason why they're covering it is because it riles up Republicans and it riles up people like me who consider themselves progressive, right? The difference is I don't watch the fucking news on television. Unless it's for the weather or some major story, I don't watch it.
You're minimizing this danger so bad right now.
I'm
You're minimizing the shit out of it.
I'm not minimizing it.
Here's the thing, though, Jeff. You're not wrong about the far right Republicans. You're not wrong about that. But here's the thing. We're talking about the extreme right and we're talking about the extreme left. And when you look at the extremes, they are both incredibly dangerous, regardless of who has more power now. Because once given power, once they gain power, it's over. It's over. And when you look at the far right, going to the farthest extremes of where they can go, you go into fascist Nazi Germany territory. Mm-hmm. When you go as far left as you can possibly go and you take that to the extremes, this is what Greg is talking about with communism and what happened in communist Russia. So
they all end the same way, a terrible totalitarian regime and the death of millions of people.
But I appreciate what you guys are saying. Here's where you're wrong. The extreme left will never gain the power that the right has gotten because there are people like no, they're not because there are people like me. The overwhelming majority of the Democratic Party is center left. A little further left than the Joe Manchins of the world. They will never let an extreme version of the left gain any sort of power that's going to allow them to get to that point.
I'm calling it right now on this day, September 2nd. I'm calling bullshit. I absolutely think it's possible, and I think we should be fearful.
So that's my main point. Even if, Jeff, what you're saying right now is that in this country, this is not something that we need to be immediately worried about, I might agree with you on that, but I think it's really important to look at examples in other countries to understand where it can go. And we should be scared of that. You don't disagree?
I don't disagree with that.
Okay.
We should always be looking at other countries on how we can do things better and how we can avoid their pitfalls. What upsets me, though, is I feel like you're dismissive of it. And I think that is dangerous. I think it is something to absolutely be concerned about. And for the same reasons I said on the previous segment we did, as liberals, you have to call out the crazy shit and be concerned about it because it is not a fair representation of what we believe in. What we just spent an entire segment calling them out. What I'm saying is I can go through the entire elected Republican Party and we can look at state representatives that we've never heard of before. We can look at what they stand for, and we could be like, holy fuck, this is batshit insane. The craziest thing on the left right now, maybe you'll find in the House, they want universal health care right this second.
What about the people calling to abolish the police? Because that's a thing.
Okay,
yep,
so you want to get a couple people that actually mean abolish the police?
A couple people?
About a group of people that are not calling to abolish the police. They are calling to reform the police and just market it.
They are calling to get rid of the police.
People, and they have no power they're not gaining any steam. In fact, they're losing it because abolishing the police as a whole is a ridiculous idea.
It is, but we can't be dismissive of it, and we can't not call it out.
No, they got enough power in Canada to get C-16 through, man. And they're only, that's our neighbors to the north. If you don't think this shit can easily take hold here in a short amount of time.
It's a different type of government.
Not that different, dude. Like we are so much alike. We are so much alike in so many ways. The fact that it gained traction there and got passed, it's something you should be terrified of if things like this article scare you. Because it's speech control and it's thought control.
I only have so much room to be terrified, and I'm terrified of what's going on the right. That's it. Like that's who's in power. That's who's making the laws.
You might have noticed a change in your neighborhood lately. Yep, Sprint stores are now T-Mobile stores. Now that Sprint is T-Mobile, you get more coverage, value, and benefits than ever before. We've invested billions to bring our 5G from big cities to small towns across America. And great coverage is just the start. From high-speed mobile hotspot data to weekly deals and giveaways, our customers get tons of great benefits. Head to your new T-Mobile store to learn more.
Qualifying service and capable device required. Coverage not available in some areas. Some uses may require certain plan or features. See T-Mobile.com.
That's what you should worry about more this very day. You're right.
Yes, I agree with you in that respect.
Courtney, did you have anything else on this? What do you think? Is there any way to justify an organized morality that is the way a country is forced to run? Is there any way to justify this? I think I'm not going to be surprised by your answer, but I'll put the question out to you.
No. Plain and simple, no. I'm just still caught up on the fact that it's like I feel like you're not even like Jeff. You're not even open to the idea that this is an actual possibility.
Right now, it's not a possibility.
Right now.
What about
in 10 years?
Okay. Who's coming up through the ranks that's going to gain enough power to get enough people behind this? China is a communist country. They always have been. Right? They never went from democracy to communism, right?
Dude, they've had empires rise and fall. But anyway, this isn't a Chinese history lesson.
They were all totalitarian empires. They weren't a democracy like we have here in the United States, right?
You got a lot of people in the States saying that they believe in communism, they believe in socialism, not understanding the full extent that some of those ideologies can be taken to.
Right, but unless they're able to convince 2/3 of the states to change the Constitution and allow someone to stay in power longer than 8 years, it's never going to happen, right? It's not going to happen. It would take a whole lot. So yeah, do we call it out? Yeah, we prevent it from happening by calling it out. And that's one thing that here we are. I'm on the left calling it out. It doesn't happen on the right. No one calls out their shit on the right.
Yeah, but look how the left kowtows to it. Look what fucking Al Franken had to do. He kowtowed to it instead of saying, fuck off, I didn't do anything, leave me alone, because you live by this bullshit sword, you're going to die by this bullshit sword. That's how it works. So in 10 years, we could be looking at a totally different reality, and you better be aware of the risk.
But Greg, it's not like he was replaced by one of these whack jobs. He was replaced by a center-left, Democrat.
Who has to march to this fucking drum beat.
Not
this agenda of you say something on the bad boy list and you're gone.
But Al Franken didn't say something on the bad boy list.
You do something on the bad boy list and you're gone. You say or do something on the bad boy list and you're gone. That's how
I would argue that if you sexually harass a woman, that you shouldn't be an elected official.
What should Al Franken have done? Should they have caused him to have to leave?
No, Al Franken should have said, pending a full investigation, I'm willing to resign if they find that I did something wrong. He should have stuck to those guns. That's what he said originally. He had pressure from his own people, both center left and the further left. Absolutely, he got
more
pressure.
People on the left need to start saying. People on the left need to start saying "fuck off" with that shit. If they really are going to call it out and don't want these extremes in their party and be able to have the hijacking power they seem to have now, they need to start calling it out like we just talked about. You need to say, fuck off to you lunatics. I'm not playing your fucking game. I'm going to go ahead and service the American people as I set out to do. Then I would have no problem with those people.
Guys, I don't disagree, but what I'm saying is none of those people have any sort of power to make laws right now. So until one of them does, I'm not really going to worry about it. I'm going to worry about the fact that we are literally living in The Handmaid's Tale, which used to be a fictional representation. Now it's a fucking documentary.
You're being hyperbolic. I mean, like, I have big problems with these abortion laws, but you're being really hyperbolic.
If we were waking up in The Handmaid's Tale, everybody would be a lot more frightened than they are today, jousting back and forth on social media about this.
We just watched hundreds of people die because they couldn't get electricity, both because Texas froze and it was too hot.
Yeah, I know. They fucked up with that privatization of the electrical grid, but that has nothing to do with waking up in The Handmaid's Tale.
It's all the same issue, guys. It's coming from the same people legislating women's rights are legislating the privatization of the power grid, which is end up killing people. Like, people are actually dying as a result of their policies. Some whack job on Twitter is not killing anyone right now.
My friend, I think in about 10 years, you're gonna think, boy, I wish more people had seen this coming and had paid attention to it as it grew. Because even though right now you are right, the scales are weighed to the right and they have the power, especially in the Supreme Court. However, I am telling you, look at Canada as your example. It's your best example to look at, and look at Hollywood right within our borders. See what's happening and see where that trend would go if these people don't lose power, which they don't seem to be in any immediate danger of losing the power they have to keep this movement going. They're getting followers, man, especially among young people. Okay, you got to remember those under 20s that are coming right up and marching to this shit and spouting this shit as though it's gospel without thinking about it too much. That's how these regimes take hold and move forward. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope you're right that there's nothing to fear about this happening and becoming reality. I hope you're damn right about that, because I don't want to live in that country when it does happen. But I'm going to call it out as long as these people are up to what they're up to. I'm going to keep calling this shit out strong, because you should be terrified of it.
I 100%
Call it out?
agree with you.
Yes, I'm not terrified of it as of right now.
Jeff, I also hope you don't think that we feel like the stuff that's going on with the Republican Party isn't a huge fucking problem.
No, it's
because
horrible.
I have a lot of issues what's going on over there. But I'm also terrified of what's going on in the other extreme end of things.
The way I look at it is, one, and again, we say the extreme right. The extreme right is the right now. They own the majority of the government. These are laws that are being made in the majority of states. They have reached the federal level at this point, right? Ted Cruz supports these policies that are going on in Texas right now. Marco Rubio supports these laws that are being made at the state level right now. This has infiltrated the federal government. The furthest left we could possibly go right now on the left as an elected official is AOC and Bernie Sanders, who simply want to give everybody health care. Oh my God. Oh, they made it. They made it to the top. Like, I get what you're saying. These people are whack jobs that you're talking about. But other than social media and Twitter and maybe gaining a few followers, they don't hold any power to do anything. Then I ask a question, and it's been raised before. But when Biden, during the debates, had to clarify that Antifa was merely an ideology and nothing more, that meant he did not want to offend the voters from that Antifa camp, which is a big fucking camp, because he needed them. Because they were going to be part of him, just like these extreme right and the racist side of the right was what Trump needed to get elected, which is why he kowtowed to them and got in bed with them. Listen, man, this shit with Biden saying that, you know damn well as well as I do that 78-year-old man does not think we're living under a fascist regime. So the fact that he had to defend it on some level by saying it's just an ideology, not a group, that's simply categorically false. And if you ever listen to Mark Bray for more than 20 minutes, you'll know that. And I just have to say, for him to do that shows the power they do have right now, and it's only a mere shift of the tides that'll really make the difference before they do edge out the right. You and I don't agree about Antifa in any way.
We do not.
Right?
It appears
we don't. It's not. I don't. It is an ideology. There is no organization of Antifa. And when Trump lost his bullhorn, you don't hear about it anymore.
I just want to know then why do the proceeds of Mark Bray's book then go to this anti-fascist fund? That seems pretty fucking organized to me. And if you're not a group, how can you be organized?
Because there are people that truly believe that they're fighting against fascism. It doesn't mean that they're an organized group.
Greg,
it doesn't mean that there isn't a small group out there taking his money.
Greg, what was the phrase that you had said the other day where it was causes become?
Oh yeah, what was the guy's name on Bill Maher that said that?
I don't remember.
The bald dude. What's his name again?
Oh, Carville. James Carville.
Carville said every movement begins with a cause, eventually turns into a business, and ends up a racket, which I thought was a brilliant quote about what people do to shit. When people get involved, and enough people get involved, and they see the power potential in it, they get a hold of it, they monetize it, and eventually it becomes a corrupt racket. A lot of that institutional racism and institutional bad in our institutions as they stand now is true for that reason. Carville was absolutely on the button with what he said.
I mean, but if you think that that's always the case, then there's no hope. What are we even fighting for?
Well, that's why we're out here talking about it. If enough Americans are talking about it and saying we're not going to put up with this shit anymore, it won't be the thing it is. It will be a less strong thing. It'll be a weaker thing that we have affected to become weaker. But we can't do that without hashing it out and speaking as much the truth about it as we can, which I think we do a good job on the show of trying to do. Yeah,
we are. And I think you're wrong. I think young people are fed up with this cancel culture.
I'm not saying all young people feel that way. I don't want to make that general of a statement, but a lot of them do.
But I think you're misguided when you say that they agree with this. I don't think they do. I think they're sick and tired of seeing the people that they grew up with and idolized disappear because of cancel culture. I hear, I hear my son talking about it with his friends.
Yeah,
like,
you're right.
Fed up with that bullshit.
There's
so
a ton of
maybe the generation before them might have got on board with that, but the generation after them, which is the young people that are just coming of age to vote now, are not about this cancel culture bullshit. They're not.
Well,
that's my hope, and that's why we have to keep talking about this.
Yes, but there are plenty of young people that are on board with this in a very passionate way because they haven't had enough experience and haven't had enough time to study history to see where it goes. I'm not saying, or if I did say it, I didn't mean to indicate it's all young people, because it's not. There's plenty of young people that feel differently, that do not like cancel culture and all that. But it's scary when you see a lot of what the young people are fighting for, because they think they're fighting for the right shit, and they're not seeing the insidious force behind the most extreme version of it, which is thought and speech control. And they're saying you should make an allowance for it in this case because they think this is the right cause. But if you make an allowance for it now, like I said, the first step is the hardest. Once you take that first step, man, it's easy, clear sailing in a lot of cases from there to execute the rest of your agenda. And that's really my larger point, which an article like this has reminded me of.
You know, say what you want to about China. I mean, there are many different things we can criticize them over, horrible things that they've done. But you also look at some of the good things they've done. Like, they essentially eliminated poverty in their culture, right? They have like 3 billion people that are, you know, that are citizens of China. There's like, you know, 5% of them that live in poverty, you know? So it's like, yeah, we need to look at all the bad things that countries do and their pitfalls, and that, but we also have to be willing, and this is America's weakness, us as a whole, is that when we say, well, every other country has figured out universal health care and offer health care as a human right, people are like, yeah, but we're not China. We're not Canada. Yeah, we should strive to be those countries in that aspect.
Yeah,
you know?
but
and then over here, we should say maybe we shouldn't do these things that they've done.
Okay, that's a fair enough point, except that if part of your equality for all and universal health care comes along with that, we can control the amount of kids you have and what you say and think and can watch. I won't take the universal health care for that price.
Well, I'm not saying that you should. I'm not saying that controlling.
I'm not saying you did. I'm just
that.
trying to clarify my point on it, but based on what you just countered with.
Well, you know, and also you have to look at like every country's different. So like we have to stop looking at communism as just inherently evil, right? It's not. We're not a fan of it. We're not going to work for it. We don't want that. But if the overwhelming majority of the population of China is happy, let them be, you know, and just that's their country, you know. And aside from the human rights violations that they engage in every single fucking day that are disgusting, you know, let them govern themselves. It's the same thing that we talked about before.
I'm not suggesting we take down China anytime soon.
I know you're not. I'm just saying, you know, to compare our countries and what's happened in those countries, you know, and say that we're on track to be that is you know, pretty absurd if you ask me, right? It's not that it can't happen, but to assume that it will based on communist China, who's been communist since forever and never went through a period of democracy, I think that's just it's apples to oranges.
I think if you're going to come out and say that this abortion law is equivalent to this country becoming the Handmaid's Tale, that what Greg is saying about communist China is not absurd.
Look, I called the Republican Party the American Taliban, you know, based off of a TV show. You know, you line up the things that the Taliban stands for and the Republican Party is doing right now, they're pretty equal, other than, you know, actually murdering women for those things, right? Which is a big one. But to say that there's not elements of the Handmaid's Tale in the policy, the strict policy of the Republican Party in Texas and Mississippi and Florida, I don't know. There's comparisons there.
Yeah, control of